Let the Lord guide you through your heartache. He will create a new path. How do you keep moving forward after losing the love of your life? Singer-songwriter-producer Michele Capps and the wife of the late 61-year Grand Ole Opry band guitarist Jimmy Capps is on a new path, and her path encourages others to do the same. This is her story. This is today's Nashville. This is Faith. Michele, it's a blessing to sit down with you. Welcome to today's Nashville.
Thank you, Terry. It's an honor to be with you.
You know, it's a small world.
Yes, it is.
I met you. I was dragging my husband out on the Christmas season. I said, we're going to go to a party. It's friends of ours, Keith and Emmy Jo Bilbrey.
Yes.
We were backing in to the grass area, and I said, Ted, you're too close to the next person. I said, they're not going to be able to get out. And he's like, I've got it. And we squeezed out, and I'm like, I'm talking to a beautiful woman, and it's like, can you even get out of your car? I'm so sorry. And it was you.
It was me.
It was you.
It was me. And of course, you know, I knew who you were, but we had never met. And
you didn't know at the time, though.
No. And so I was like, oh my goodness, they're getting pretty close to us, you know.
I know.
And the lady that was with me is my dear friend Hazel Daniels, Charlie Daniels' wife. And,
did she say something about it?
No. She was just like, because she couldn't see as well, you know, how close that I was. But anyway, it was fine. It worked out fine.
And you're like, oh no, we're fine. I could barely get out. But Ted's like, hey, I've got it under control. But that was a great night. I got to meet you and so many people. And I've heard about you. I've heard about your story. You were married to Jimmy Capps,
yes.
And everybody kept saying, you have to have Michele.
Oh.
And you have amazing story of faith. So just tell me about it.
Well, we were so blessed. You know, we met in the studio. I came here to record, and I met him at that session, but we were friends, you know. Of course, immediately we, you know, became friends.
Well, tell me who Jimmy is first.
Well, Jimmy is a legendary guitar player, and he played on everything from Stand By Your Man to The Gambler, and He Stopped Loving Her Today, and
everybody wanted him.
He played, but he came here as a teenager with the Louvin brothers. But Jimmy played, not only did he play on so many sessions, but he played on a lot of television shows. I mean, back years and years ago, he played on the CMA award shows with the Bill Walker Orchestra for nearly 20 years. He played on the Statler Brothers shows. I can talk about him for forever because he did so many things. But he played on a lot of television specials, but he played on the Grand Ole Opry starting when he was a teenager. And
when he was a teenager?
He was a teenager with the Louvin brothers, and when he passed away, he had been on the Opry for over 61 years, longer than any musician has ever been on the Opry. And on his 60th Opry anniversary, the Grand Ole Opry named the band room, we all called it the band room, they named it the Jimmy Capps Music Room. But he was so humble, Jimmy was, that when somebody would come up and say, oh, Jimmy, look, this is so neat, you know, the Jimmy Capps Music Room, and he'd say, they put it up there with Velcro so they could take it down real easy. And of course, you know, the Opry's like, it'll never come down, it'll be there from now on. And he was still playing the Opry, you know, when he got sick. And so somebody said, in fact, I think it was Keith Bilbrey that said, well, Michele, he never got fired and he never had to quit. And I'm like, that's a blessing, because we talked about when he should retire, and he never had to make that decision.
No, he didn't.
You know?
You know, when you walk in to the back entry,
Mm-hmm.
there's the big plaque of Jimmy Capps.
Like I said, he was so humble. And he had been there for so many years. In fact, he always said, when people would say, "How long have you been on the Opry?" He would say, "I came with a building, and I'm not talking about this one." He was talking about the Ryman, you know. But he
Did he start with, yeah, of course he started with the Ryman.
Yeah, and he said he just felt so blessed, and he never bragged on himself, not even to me. I would have to ask him, I'd hear a song and it would sound like him, and I'd say, "Honey, did you play on that?" And he'd say, "Yeah." You know, and I'm like, if it'd been me, I would have been saying, "Oh, honey, listen, I played on that," you know. But he was he was the most humble, kind human being that I've ever known. He loved to joke and tease, but he was quiet with it, so you really had to listen because he could zing you, and you didn't realize it. But
Who did you know who is person who influenced him in his life or his music or he looked up to?
As a child, of course, he listened to the Grand Ole Opry, and he was hearing Chet Atkins, and he was listening to Spider Wilson. And Spider, Jimmy didn't realize it, but Spider was just a kid too, and he was already playing on the Opry. But he had a lot of heroes. It's hard to name, you know, because he considered, you know, his friends that were great guitar players. He would tell them, you know, you're my hero. But so many session players have told me that Jimmy was on the very first session that I ever played on, and I was so scared. And Jimmy made sure that I felt like I belonged there just as much as anyone else. He made me feel so comfortable.
Is that where you met him?
I met him on a session. I came here to record an album, and thankfully the studio owner hired Jimmy as the band leader. And I couldn't have been any more blessed because, you know, I was in good hands, and B.G. Adair, piano player, and Billy Linneman, who played on the Opry. And I mean, it was just a wonderful group of people that he put together. We had no idea that years later we would wind up married. We had no idea.
So how old were you then?
I was in my 20s.
Okay, you're in your 20s.
Yeah,
all right.
I was in my 20s.
And so you
Don't ask me how long ago that's been.
Hey, you were in your 20s, you came to Nashville. Were you living here in Nashville?
No, and I really didn't. So I was traveling. The job that I had, I was traveling a lot. So, you know, I would come to Nashville and visit. And when I did, after meeting Jimmy and Billy, who both played on the Opry, they would clear me to come backstage at the Opry. And that turned into a job for me at the Opry that lasted 25 years.
We're going to talk about your life with the Opry, television, some of the shows that you've been on with, your life with Jimmy, and some of the heartbreak. And we're going to talk about it when we come back.